Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Good afternoon and thank you, Ohio Satsang Group. Bhagavan Jayanthi wishes and a Happy New Year from Michigan Satsang Group. Today we have a reading from Talks with Sri Ramana Maharishi, Talk 503, 17th August 1938 by Nick, followed by a reading from Shiva Bhakta Vilasham as narrated by Sage Upamanyu, Chapter 18, Neelakantha the Potter by Saroja, and Moments Remembered, Chapter 22, Victorious Ramana by Uma.
A reading from Talks with Sri Ramana Maharishi. Talk number 503. An American gentleman, Mr. J. M. Laurie, has been staying in the ashram for about 2 months. He asked, "I am leaving tonight. It gives me pain to tear myself away from this place, but I must go to America. I ask for a message from the Master. The Master understands me even better than I do myself, so I pray for a message to keep me up when I am away from the Master." Sri Bhagavan responds, "The Master is not outside you as you seem to imagine. He is within, is in fact the Self. Recognize this truth. Seek within you and find him there. Then you will have constant communion with him. The message is always there. It is never silent. It can never forsake you, nor can you ever move away from the Master. Your mind is outgoing. Because of that tendency, it sees objects as being outside and the Master among them. But the truth is different. The Master is the Self. Turn the mind within and you will find the objects within. You will also realize that it is the Master who is your very self, and there is nothing but him. Because you identify yourself with the body, you have accepted objects as being outside you. But are you the body? You are not. You are the Self. There are all the objects in the whole universe. Nothing can escape the Self. How then can you move away from the Master who is your very self? Suppose your body moves from place to place. Does it ever move away from yourself? Similarly, you can never be without the Master." Mr. Laurie was struck by the answer, although he was already familiar with the Master's ways. He was even visibly moved. He prayed that the grace of the Master might abide with him. Sri Bhagavan responds, "The Master being the Self, grace is inseparable from the Self." Mr. Laurie saluted Sri Maharishi with intense fervor, saying that he might be enabled to realize the truth. Sri Bhagavan responds, "Is there any moment when you have not realized the Self? Can you ever be apart from the Self? You are always that." Mr. Laurie says, "You are the great Master shedding joy and bliss on the world. Your love is indeed unlimited, that you choose to abide in the world in human shape. But I wish to know if one should necessarily realize oneself before being of help to the country and a leader of men." Sri Bhagavan responds, "Realize the Self first, and the rest will follow." Mr. Laurie asks, "America is now the foremost country in industrial matters, mechanical engineering, scientific advance, and other worldly affairs. Will she come up to the same level in spiritual life also?" Sri Bhagavan responds, "Certainly, she is bound to." And Mr. Laurie says, "Thank God that it will be so. I am a partner in an engineering firm, but it is not of vital concern to me. I try to bring spiritual ideals into the workaday life of the firm." Sri Bhagavan says, "That is good. If you surrender yourself to the higher power, all is well. That power sees your affairs through. Only so long as you think that you are the worker, you are obliged to reap the fruits of your actions. If, on the other hand, you surrender yourself and recognize your individual self as only a tool of the higher power, that power will take over your affairs along with the fruits of actions. You are no longer affected by them, and the work goes on unhampered. Whether you recognize the power or not, the scheme of things does not alter. Only there is a change of outlook. Why should you bear the load on the head when you are traveling on a train? It carries you and your load whether the load is on your head or on the floor of the train. You are not lessening the burden of the train by keeping it on your head, but only straining yourself unnecessarily. Similar is the sense of doership in the world by the individuals. Mr. Laurie says, I have been interested myself in metaphysics for over 20 years, but I have not gained any novel experience as so many others claim to do. I have no powers of clairvoyance, clairaudience, etc. I feel myself locked up in this body and nothing more. Sri Bhagavan responds, it is right. Reality is only one, and that is the self. All the rest are mere phenomena in it, of it, and by it. The seer, the objects, and the sight, all are the self only. Can anyone see or hear, leaving the self aside? What difference does it make to see or hear anyone in close proximity or over enormous distance? The organs of sight and hearing are both needed. So also the mind is required. None of them can be dispensed with in either case. There is dependence one way or another. Why then should there be such glamour about clairvoyance and clairaudience? Moreover, what is acquired will also be lost in due course. They can never be permanent. The only permanent thing is reality, and that is the self. You say, I am going, I am speaking, I am working, etc. Hyphenate I am in all of them. Thus, I am. That is the abiding and fundamental reality. This truth was taught by God to Moses. I am that I am. Be still and know that I am God. So, I am is God. You know that you are. You cannot deny your existence at any moment of time, for you must be there in order to deny it. This, pure existence, is understood by stilling your mind. The mind is the outgoing faculty of the individual. If that is turned within, it becomes still in course of time, and that I am alone prevails. I am is the whole truth. Mr. Laurie says, I appreciate the whole answer, to which Sri Bhagavan asks, who is there to appreciate what? A question about heart. Sri Bhagavan said, leave alone the idea of right and left. They pertain to the body. The heart is the self. Realize it, and then you will see for yourself. Mr. Laurie thanked Sri Bhagavan and saluted him before retiring.
Shivabhakta Vilasam, as narrated by Sage Upamanyu. Chapter 18. Nilakanta, the potter. Sri Agasya, there is no deity as easily propitiated as Shiva Mahadeva. Shiva alone is capable of removing the fear of death. Yama, the god of death, is Shiva's servitor. Enjoyments are transient and beget a mortal body for their fulfillment. For all mortals who are subject to death, the Lord who controls the death alone is the refuge. Shiva puts an end to death by ensuing the body begetting karma. He is easily attainable by the path of devotion for which no rigid qualifying criteria are defined, whereas for the path of karma and jnana, strict codes of conduct and qualifications are required. The wise say that anybody can qualify for bhakti. Shiva ignores all matters relating to caste, class, scholastic, and even spiritual achievements such as yoga, samkhya, penance, etc., of those who offer him with guileless love flowers, fruit, or even leaves, and bestows liberation on them. The story is quoted as an example in this context, which I shall presently narrate. The famed Shaivite center, Chidambaram, shone as a crest jewel to the whole world. Sages Patanjali and Vyagrapada attained release by watching the Lord's Ananda Tandava dance in the golden hall, the Swarna Sabha of this temple. Fire sacrifices performed by the pious Brahmanas sanctified the surroundings and filled the air with ethereal fragrance and radiance. There dwelt a potter devoted to Shiva. With his skilled hands, he transformed the formless mud into attractive and useful shapes of pots, bowls, plates, etc., and weighed in his art with the Creator himself. Wearing sacred ashes and rudrakshas, he repeated the Mahapanchakshari always. With his Margri earrings, he made gifts of food and clothing besides the artifacts he made himself for the needy Shiva Bhaktas. Seeing the Lord in his devotees, he served them unreservedly. His wife helped him in all ways, making themselves an ideal couple. Their only misfortune of not having a child did not come in their way of leading a contented and happy life of service and devotion. Once he was blessed with the Lord's darshanam in a dream. Impressed by the Lord's blue throat, Nilakanta, he saw everything as the emanation of it. Since then, he continuously repeated the name Nilakanta. For that reason, he earned the title Nilakanta himself. Once he was returning home rather late in the evening when a sudden downpour started. Becoming drenched, he approached a house for shelter that happened to be a harlot's. Recognizing the pious devotee, she gave him dry clothes and comforted him with warmth and incense smoke. As the rain subsided, Nilakanta took leave of the charitable lady and reached home. Though he explained everything that happened, his wife was not convinced that he had not crossed his limits. She even accused him of having a long-standing affair that only surfaced now. In a fit of anger, she forbid him from even touching her with an oath, taking the name of Lord Nilakanta. His heart severely hurt, Nilakanta went a step further and vowed not to touch her forever. Henceforth, they observed strict abstinence. Though outwardly they continued to live the life of householders, thus they attained old age without giving a clue of their secret life to others. Now Parameshwara, who was the witness of all acts, decided to demonstrate their piety and purity to the world. Taking the garb of a Shaiva sadhu, he approached Nilakanta, who cordially accorded to him all the standard courtesies. Later, standing with folded hands, he asked the sadhu in what way he could be of service. To this the sadhu, with hidden intentions, said, "I possess an earthen alms bowl obtained by long penance. It is a wish-fulfilling and brings prosperity to its possessor. Owing to this, I do not care for other worldly possessions. I entrust this in your care now and shall retrieve it later." Nilakanta received it with great reverence and after the sadhu departed, carefully deposited it in the inner chamber. Late, time and again, he would check its safety, which he considered more than his life. and one day the well-guarded pot disappeared by the god's will. Soon the sadhu returned and demanded his bowl. Nilakanta received him and after paying homage to him, looked for the bowl. Unable to find it, he searched again and again but in vain. Neither his wife knew his whereabouts. He explained everything to the sadhu and offered to replace it with another piece. The sadhu became wrathful with this proposition and shouted, "How dare you talk like a lowly businessman to a tapasvi? Having appropriated the matchless bowl obtained by my penance, you now offer a piece of earth to me in return? Certainly I have been cheated, mistaking you to be a pious servitor of the Lord. The wise have truly said the appearances are always deceptive." In this train, he started cursing the innocent porter at length. Nilakanta fell at his feet, begging for mercy and his advice on recompense. Still feigning distrust, the sadhu declared amidst the crowd that gathered, "I can give credence to your words if you bring your son to Shivaganga tank of the Nataraja temple, take a holy dip and declare the fact, swearing on him." "But I have no children," replied Nilakanta helplessly. "Then bring your wife and make the declarations by holding her hand. In any case, I met with a ruinous fate." Now Nilakanta was in a fix, lest the loath of his youth should be revealed. He rejected the sadhu's proposal. The latter rushed to the blessed assemblage of the 3,000 Shiva Dikshitas and voiced his complaint. The holy servitors of the Lord summoned the potter and said, "Nilakanta, you seem to agree that you have indeed received the sadhu's article. If you are unable to return it, you better undertake the pledge as he wishes." At this, Nilakanta had to disclose the public in that about his oath of yoke taken in secret that prevented him from taking the pledge by holding his wife's hand. Surprised to hear of his woe, the priests came up with a solution. The couple could, however, hold either end of the bamboo stick, immerse themselves in the Shivaganga waters. The couple did as advised. When they emerged from the water, their old bodies gave way to the youthful ones of the good old times. The assemblage set up a thundering applause and shouted, "Hara Hara." The sadhu transformed into the celebrated form of the Lord on the bull mount and addressed the pious couple with youth restored. "You are reborn now, so the earlier woe does not hold any longer. Resume your normal marital relationship and live long." Blessing them thus, the Lord disappeared. Nilakanta lived a normal householder's life thereafter, continuing his devotional practices and service. Blessed with children, the couple led a life of fulfillment. In the end, the Lord of Chidambaram bestowed them with the expanse of consciousness as their eternal abode. Those who read or hear this glorious story with earnestness will escape future births on the earth.
This following reading is from Moments Remembered by V. Ganeshan, Chapter 22, Victorious Ramana. "East is east and west is west, and never the twain shall meet," wrote Kipling. But this was falsified in the presence of Sri Bhagavan. Intellectual or intuitive, modern or orthodox, white or colored, rich or poor, all who came stood merged in the truth of that one being, present in the form of the sage of Arunachala. The early devotees from the West are not to be treated lightly. They were ripe souls rather than mere seekers. Humphreys, Paul Brunton, Grant Duff, Chadwick, Maurice Friedman, Arthur Osborne, Cohen, Duncan Greenlees, and others found in Sri Ramana guidance and strength according to their need and admired in him what they cherished. The Englishman, perhaps the sage's politeness and sense of order. The German, his punctuality and thoroughness. The Frenchman, the cheer and grace that he exuded as a flower, its fragrance and his equal vision. The American, his originality and freedom. While everyone certainly marveled the peace that passeth all understanding that he radiated. There certainly was a mysterious force which drew these matured souls to the feet of Bhagavan. And who can unravel the secret better than Bhagavan? Once, while talking about Major A.W. Chadwick, Bhagavan remarked, Chadwick was with us before he was one of us. He had a desire to be born in the West, and that has been fulfilled. When Maurice Friedman, as narrated earlier, composed a verse, the substance and style of which were the same as Appaya Dikshitar's, someone near Bhagavan wondered how a Westerner far removed in time and culture could have echoed the very words. Bhagavan remarked, why not? Those who were here were born there and have only returned. I take pleasure in relating a few instances from the lives of Western Bhaktas who found in Bhagavan the fulfillment of their quest. The satsang I have had with Mr. Arthur Osborne, was our founder, editor, is filled with fond memories, and it was a great boost in my spiritual quest. He guided me more through his silent presence than through words. One day I went to him with a personal problem. I had had an experience which could be a dream, a vision, or reality. He asked me to describe the whole experience in minutest detail. After listening carefully, he said with a smile, Ganeshan, this is a genuine spiritual experience. You are fortunate. You have been given the mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. This is what they call Apajja Japa. I shall tell you about my own experience. Listen. When Bhagavan was in the body, we who belong to the circle of René Guénon, the French philosopher, were drawn to Sri Bhagavan like iron fillings to a powerful magnet. Among this group, Mr. David McIver was fortunate enough to stay with Bhagavan and under his guidance translate into English almost all the works of Sri Bhagavan and also works like Tripura Rahasya and Advaita Bodha Deepika, recommended by Sri Bhagavan. Then he was attracted to a yogi near Trivandrum, took him as his guru and settled down there. David, who was very fond of me and my wife, felt very strongly that we should also go there and become disciples of his own guru. His contention was that for spiritual fulfillment, his physical guru was absolutely essential, and that since Bhagavan never claimed himself to be a guru, we should leave him and accept a guru who was prepared to accept us as his disciples. There was a spate of correspondence between us in this regard. All these letters from and to David were shown to Bhagavan without fail. My replies, claiming Bhagavan was my only guru, were all approved by him with a nod of his head. One day I received a nasty letter warning me of dire consequences if I did not immediately leave Ramana and go over to his guru. I did not show this letter to Bhagavan. I was terribly upset over it. I thought I might show it to him in that evening. In the afternoon, I was doing some weeding work in the garden, head bowed and knees bent. Suddenly, I heard a thud sound behind me. Some animal jumping down a tree and approaching me from behind. In no time, it got on my back and sat down. I felt as if it were a bear, for it had a lot of hair and was holding on to me with its hind legs, gripping me around my chest from behind. Ganeshan, my feeling at that time was not one of curiosity to know what it was, nor fear, not even unpleasantness. It was calm detachment. I was undisturbed and continued the weeding work. Noticing my indifference, the animal started increasing its weight and size. Soon I had to bend forward, owing to the burden on my back. The weight became unbearable. Still, I was undisturbed and felt no fear. Suddenly, it gripped my throat with its hairy hands and started throttling me. I was becoming breathless. The grip was tightening more and more. All this did not produce in me a tinge of fear. I remained mentally fully alert and undisturbed. I felt I could breathe no more. The grip still continued to be tightening. Without any trace of fear, I felt I was going to die. Then the miracle took place. At the thought of death, I heard within me a sound, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva. I was not making the sound, but something else within me was doing it. The intensity, the volume and speed of chanting of the japa increased. It was a delightful experience to hear within you a japa pronouncing itself, and at the same time you are being aware of the grip of death. death. As the japa continued, the grip on my throat started loosening. The size and weight of the animal grew less and less. All the while, the apajja japa within me was going on of its own accord. Suddenly, the animal jumped away from my back and started running towards the tree. I could hear its steps rushing back. It climbed the tree and disappeared. Immediately, I got back to my normal senses. The japa continued uninterruptedly. I got up and searched for the beast but could not find it. I was very happy listening within me to the chant Arunachala Shiva. The next day, while Bhagavan was returning from his stroll up on the hill, I met him and showed him the letter and then narrated to him what had happened the previous evening. Bhagavan listened to me, and when I stopped, he said with his benign smile, "This is all they can do. Everything is all right." By they, he must have meant the Guru, who was a past master in black magic and who made David write to me that threatening letter. Bhagavan was a Purna Jnani, perfect sage. When you come under the protection of a perfect Satguru, even a bad experience caused by the black magic proves a blessing in disguise. I had the good fortune of being initiated into the japa of Arunachala Shiva. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Arunachala Ramanaya.